Casey, it's time to talk about vibe coding.
Yes, Kevin, this is, I would say, your latest obsession, and I'm very eager to hear what exactly you've been doing and making. But before we get into all of that, what is vibe coding?
So vibe coding is a term that is very new. It was popularized on social media like in the last week or two. And it was coined by Andre Karpathy, the engineer sort of formerly of OpenAI and Tesla.
I would say a leading AI researcher and educator.
Yes. So he talked at the beginning of February on X about how he had been doing these kind of like small hobbyist programming projects where basically instead of writing the code himself, he was just kind of like using these AI tools to do what he called vibe coding, where he's essentially like telling it like, I want this app to do this thing, and it's going off and doing it. And maybe he steps in to debug something if it stops working. But he wrote, quote, I just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, and copy paste stuff, and it mostly works.
So this is really like you're just kind of overseeing the AI write the code. Andre, it sounds like, is doing very little of the writing. He's basically doing what I heard some people predict that we would arrive at this point, which is like English is the new programming language. You just sort of say in English what you want the code to do, and then it does it.
Yeah, and this is different from the AI coding tools that existed even a couple of years ago. Like GitHub Copilot was one of the early AI coding assistants where basically it would just auto-complete your code, right? You could be writing a line of Python or JavaScript, and it would sort of see what you were up to, and it would complete it for you, and you would just press tab, and it would, go on to your next thing. But you still had to know how to program to use those tools effectively. But what's been happening in the last couple of years, and really over the last 6 months has gotten quite good, are these tools that essentially remove the need to program at all. So now there are lots of tools out there. There's a tool called Cursor. There's a tool called Replit. There's Bolt. There's Lovable. There's a bunch of these tools where basically you just go in and you get a text box and it says, what do you want to build? And you say, I want an app that does this, this, and this. And it goes out and builds it for you. Pretty much instantaneously.
Now, I have a friend who runs a tech company, and he once made fun of this whole idea to me by saying, hey, you want to talk about programming in the English language? That's what I do all day long as a CEO. I'm constantly telling my engineers in English what to do, and it works, maybe a little over half the time, but maybe not much more than that. So what has been your early experience of vibe coding? What have you been trying to build, and how has it been going?
I want to talk about my projects, but first I want to talk about like my own history with this stuff, because I am a former programmer. When I was a teenager, I was into coding. I would build websites. I would build little like JavaScript projects. I spent a very excruciating summer trying to teach myself Flash so that I could make animated cartoons like Homestar Runner. Then I dropped it. I went to college. I learned about journalism. I thought, well, this is the path I want. I became a word cell, and then I stopped coding altogether. And so when I started hearing about these tools that would let you just like code without knowing how to code, I was very interested, and I started, experimenting. One of the first things I built was this podcast summarizer, where you can take a podcast that's very long and just use like AI to transcribe it, and then use a different AI to summarize the transcripts and put it all into like a searchable database so that I could say, okay, I don't feel like listening to this 5-hour podcast about AI, but I can basically get the executive summary using AI.
So tell us a little bit about your setup. Like what software are you using to do this?
So I've been trying a couple different tools. Sometimes I just use the raw like AI models themselves, like the Claude, the ChatGPT. Those tools are quite good at some projects, but they can't actually, for the most part, run the software to sort of test it inside the window. So it does require some copying and pasting. So this new kind of app that I've been using is a more integrated development environment.
An IDE?
An IDE. So Cursor is the one that's really popular right now. If you've never used an IDE before, you might find it a little puzzling. I certainly did. But it basically lets you prompt the AI to write the code for you, automatically debug it, sort of deploy it within a little test window, and then push it out onto the web where people can actually use it.
So tell us about some of the other projects you've been building.
So in addition to my podcast summarizer, I also had AI help me redesign my website to look more cyberpunk. That was the aesthetic I was going for.
Wait, is this live? Can I view it?
No, it hasn't deployed yet,
I
but
see.
it's going to be there soon. I had it.
Wait, what? How did it make it look more cyberpunk?
It just redesigned the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Like bright neons, like sharp edges, cool scrolling, sort of parallax style animations.
Do you have like a bionic arm in your author photo now?
Yes. I built a tool to pull all of my bookmarks from X into a spreadsheet. I use X a lot to, I'll bookmark things that I find interesting or want to return
You'll say,
to later.
wow, that's the most racist thing I've ever heard.
Yes. So now I have a tool that will go through all of my bookmarks and, pull those into a spreadsheet that I can search later. That one was very interesting because it basically presented me with a couple options. After I asked, I think it was Claude to build this tool for me. It said, well, we could go use the Twitter API, but that costs money. And if you don't want to pay that, we have this other way that we can do it that involves like using a browser to sort of like scrape the bookmarks from Twitter. And so I went with that version.
Wow, you realize that by doing this, you are now like essentially an armed combatant in Elon Musk's war on bots. Like you are the bot that Elon Musk is trying to destroy.
Come at me, bro.
Good luck, buddy.
I've got my bookmarks. Now I don't need it anymore.
All right, what else?
So the thing that I built most recently was yesterday when I was trying to determine if various objects that I'm moving to my new house would fit in the trunk of my car.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built an app called Will It Fit in My Trunk?
Now, this feels like a classic math-based problem that maybe Vlad's thing could have helped you with. But you used something else. How did it go?
So far so good. It hasn't steered me wrong yet. But this is the sort of that speaks to what I think is so fun and interesting about this genre of coding project is you can really just build what I call software for one. Like a software company would never build a tool for wide release that let you figure out whether various objects would fit in your trunk. That is not a big total addressable market.
Sounds like you never saw Trunky in the App Store. I'm just kidding. That's not a real app. But yes, you're right.
So this style of coding really makes it possible to build things that you and only you need or will it ever.
And there's something fun about it because I think, particularly for like you and I who actually enjoy technology and like using it, like trying new things, coding can feel like actual magic, right? It can feel like wizardry. And if you are the one who is all of a sudden wielding the wand and making things happen, then, you're feeling great.
Yeah, it is the most fun that I've had with these AI tools in a while. I think it is the most fun thing you can do with AI in today's world. And it has really sort of connected me back to my teenage coder self and reminded me what I loved about it back then.
I spent a lot of time in college and afterwards writing HTML. I had a program called Dreamweaver.
Love Dreamweaver.
And got pretty handy with it. But if I had been able to chat with an AI assistant about why I was having trouble with my movable type installation in 2004, like my website would have been sick as hell.
Casey, I'm sure you have some niche software needs in your life.
Absolutely.
And I asked you the other day what I could build for you using my vibe coding tools. And what did you say?
What I said was, I need help with my hot tub.
Go on.
Well, listen, here's what they don't tell you about buying a hot tub. When it comes to your house and you decide, I want to use the hot tub that I have just purchased, you have to become a chemical engineer. Here's what I mean by that. You open up the manual, all of a sudden you learn you are going to need to monitor the pH balance of your water. You're going to need to monitor the alkalinity of the water. You're going to need to monitor the calcium level of the water, because if there is not enough calcium, it can somehow corrupt the jets in your hot tub. And needless to say, Kevin, I don't have a lot of experience mixing chemicals to adjust alkalinity and pH levels in bodies of water. And I thought, well, how am I going to do this? And so then I actually do start using the chatbots, not to write me software, but essentially just to say, please, God, help me. What do I do? And there are so many things to keep track of. You have to put various chemicals into the hot tub at different intervals. So you replace this once a month. You replace this once a quarter. Twice a year, you have to drain the entire tub. Once a month, you have to shock the hot tub. Don't ask me what that means. I just read that today. It's giving me a nervous breakdown.
Just show it some spicy tweets.
Yes, exactly. So there's so much to keep track of. And I thought, well, if I were going to build software just for me, it would be something that just checked in with me to prevent my hot tub from turning into a bacterial soup.
Well, Casey, I have great news for you.
What's that?
I built you a hot tub.
Oh, my goodness. You vibe coded on my behalf?
I vibe coded on your behalf.
Thank you.
So after you told me about the issues you were having with your hot tub, which are very relatable, by the way, listeners are all going, me too. I have an issue with my hot tub.
We have a very wealthy audience that is constantly buying huge upgrades for their homes. And every once in a while, Kevin, we have to do something for the C-suite listeners.
Exactly. So I took this as a brief and I went into a tool called Replit and I said to the tool, make me an app that will tell me the things that I need to do to keep this specific kind of hot tub working properly and put it in a tool that my friend can use. And I said, because this is a tool that tells you the time, they use as a machine to tell you the time to service your hot tub, I was going to call it Hot Tub Time Machine. And
that's very good. I like that. Yeah.
So I built you a website called Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
So let me show it to you.
Okay.
Now, I just want to tell you and caveat this by saying that I did not choose the design or the color scheme here. That was all the AI.
Okay, great.
So open up the link I just sent you.
All right, I'm opening up the link. Okay, so it is quite pink. It's pink on pink, which is a color scheme that you don't see a lot outside of the Barbie franchise. But no, there is some black text. It looks beautiful. And it says Hot Tub Time Machine, your retro-futuristic maintenance companion. And it even created a little logo, which I'm going to assume is a drop of water?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
And there are two sort of modules. There's a manage tasks module and a view schedule module.
So this tool is very simple. This is a prototype. We can flesh it out if you want to, but basically...
Is this in alpha or is this in beta?
This is an alpha.
This is an alpha.
You're the single user of this app. And basically, I've set it up so that it will email you weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually with a list of everything you need to do to keep your hot tub in working order. And as a special bonus, every email will come with a poem about hot tubs.
Fantastic. Well, can I start clicking around?
Yeah, click around.
All right, so I'm going to click on View Tasks, and all right, and this brings up, there's a sort of module where I can add a new task, but there are also some existing tasks, and it includes weekly, quarterly, monthly, and annual maintenance. And it is, frankly, an overwhelming number of things to do.
Yeah, you bought yourself some chores when you bought that hot tub.
It really is just a wall of text of things that I have to do. Like every week, I am apparently supposed to spray off the filter with a garden hose.
Yeah.
And add 1 cup of non-chlorine shock, especially after parties or heavy. So yes, lots in here. Okay. And also looks like I can add, another task if, I decide
I'm going
to
to click the
more.
little test button here to send you one of these, and you'll see if it shows up in your inbox.
Aha. Let's see. Yes. Oh, time to maintain my hot tub. And there are some step-by-step instructions that I can follow. And below that, the hot tub poetry corner. And should I read this poem?
Yes, please.
All right, here's the poem. Bubbles rise in swirling steam, time machine of warmth and dream, Nordic waters, pure delight, maintaining bliss both day and night. That is okay, I guess I would say. That is okay. Nordic, of course, a reference to the fact that I have a Nordic Jubilee Series hot tub.
Yes. So I built this all in about half an hour without writing a single line of code.
Okay.
And I want to share that with you because not only will it help you with your hot tub issues, but I hope it will also show you the promise of vibe coding.
Yeah, well, I feel like you have shown me the promise of vibe coding. Now, was there anything about this that was particularly tricky, or did you get stuck on anything?
Yeah, so there are some things that it can't do, right? Like if it needs to authenticate you into some service or set up a database. Like, you have to kind of manually step in and do that. There are some things that it just can't do because no human programmer could do it either. If there's no API for something, for example, it won't sort of magically invent one. So there are some boundaries and limitations. And I would say it still does benefit you when using this stuff to have at least a little bit of programming experience, because there are just certain decisions that it will prompt you to make where you're like, I don't actually know what these terms mean or what the right decision is here. And you can ask the AI to just like make the decision for you, but you might not be totally happy with the result.
Now, during this process, I'm curious if you felt like you were learning something about the coding process. Like, if you spent the next year making these little one-off apps, do you feel like you would maybe be a decent junior software engineer? Or is the idea actually not to get into the details, to just sort of let it build things, and if you don't know what it's doing, that's none of your business?
Yeah, I think I'm more in the latter camp. I mean, this was the part that I found fascinating about what Andrej Karpathy said about vibe coding. Like, he's an extremely good programmer, but he says that he, now can enter this mode where he basically just says like, okay, accept, and the computer will go off and do its thing. I don't know enough about programming to dive into the weeds of what the AI is doing and the decisions it's making. I just have to look at the end result. And there's something exciting about that, where I feel like things are just happening magically on my behalf. But that's also, maybe it's inserting malicious code. Maybe it's doing something that I don't want it to be doing. I have no way as a non-programmer to know whether that's happening.
Have you checked your computer to see if it installed a Bitcoin miner while you weren't looking?
I have not, but that would be pretty tricky.
Well, Kevin, this experiment has me thinking about a blog post I read this week by a guy named Namanye Goel. And his blog post was titled "New Junior Developers Can't Actually Code." This post got 1 million views, according to the post that I'm looking at. And he is saying that when he talks to junior developers, they are having an experience very similar to you, which is that as they are building these systems, they are essentially just supervising an AI. They aren't actually getting their hands dirty and understanding like which mechanisms are leading to which results. So while this is great for you, I do think it raises the question, what happens when most of our software engineers are building systems that in some fundamental way they don't understand?
Yeah, I think this is a very real thing. I mean, the flip side of me, a non-coder, being able to build stuff is that if real coders are using these tools, there's like no incentive for them to learn the basic skills of programming and learn the syntax of the different languages. And yeah, I don't know what to do about that. It sort of seems like a version of what happened when we all got like Google Maps on our phones, is that like people started losing their sense of direction. There's this kind of skill atrophy issue that people worry about. But I think that the returns to knowing how to use these things effectively are still great enough and still require enough sort of knowledge of how the various pieces of code fit together, that it still does make sense for people to learn to code. I'm not one of these people who thinks like learn to code is totally over. I think for some people it's still a very useful skill to have, but I don't know how much there is to gain by sort of working full time as a software engineer who's just working. But I think that in the future, like the sort of role of the software engineer will become more like a product manager, where you are essentially supervising the product, laying out the vision, overseeing the design, like stepping in to fix things when they break, but you're not actually sort of in the trenches of the code, writing lines of code by hand.
All right.
What do you think?
What I think is that as AI systems get more and more powerful, we need people who do understand them on a very detailed, technical, complex, down to the metal kind of way. And that if we don't do that, our only alternative will just to be to trust the AI when we ask it, hey, how do you work? And there are a lot of reasons why I don't want to end up in that world. So I'm comfortable having fewer people in this world who know the code at that level of detail, and it's fine to me if most software engineers don't, but I want a solid core of people who do.
Yeah. And I would like to continue with my vibe coding experiments, trying to build increasingly more useful tools for myself and my friends.
And I am thinking about starting, because if you can do it, surely I can.
Yes, anyone can. That is sort of the point. And I also would love to hear from our listeners what they are vibe coding. What tools and apps are you building using AI that are solving your own personal specific problems?
Did you invent a novel bioweapon using ChatGPT? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, please email that one to tips@fbi.gov.
But the others, hardfork@nytimes.com. Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.